Welcome to Cyber Week 2022. My name is Ian, and I'm the Field Chief Security Officer for Palo Alto Networks. Today, we've put together a panel of CISOs from the FSI industry to talk about their challenges and journey in the new banking era. Right? As you know, we don't bank the same way as we used to today. Today, a lot of our consumers expect instant and convenient access to their banking apps. They don't want to go to a branch anymore. Again, the pandemic fueled that as well. But more than that, they want more products and services, more capabilities, in their hands, right? And because of that, both established banks as well as fintechs alike have created this API economy or ecosystem where they are interacting with each other to give the consumer this seamless experience. And creating these new products and services creates also unprecedented risk. And that's why we're here today to really talk about how you deal with the cybersecurity implications of new banking, how you build your cloud applications to be more secure, how you would cater to a borderless workforce, and especially how do you now deal and address the threats that are attacking this much widened attack surface. So we have here today Vishal, who heads up the consulting arm of our Unit 42 team, which is our threat intelligence department at Palo Alto Networks. And he's going to talk about how the threat landscape is evolving, especially in the FSI world. Vishal, nice to have you here.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you for inviting me. Unit 42 has been involved in large breach investigations across the globe. In the hundreds of investigations that we performed last year and over the past couple of years, I would say, we have seen some of the most devastating attacks that happen on customers' environments and customer networks. When we talk about these attacks in our experience, what we have seen is there are a couple of attack vectors that attackers use. Some of the key attack vectors, I would say, if I need to list the top attack vector, the first would be the phishing or probably the business email compromise. If I'll give you some statistics around BEC, way back, like I say, not just way back, I would say 6 years ago, around 2016, the global losses that happened because of BEC were around $360 million. If you look at the figures today in 2021, or probably last year, the figure is around $2.4 billion just in the United States. So we can think of what would have been the global losses because of just phishing or business email compromise. The second thing that we look at as an attack vector is web server compromise, as specifically the API-based attacks as such. So in the last year, we saw around 42 or 43 different vulnerabilities across various platforms being exploited by attackers to gain access to the network. The third thing that we see is stolen credentials. Now, this is a very interesting one. Many a times when attackers compromise your networks, they are in the network and sometimes they will achieve their mission in terms of stealing data and then asking for ransom. But on the other side, sometimes attackers in the network just to steal credentials. They steal credentials and they use it, they actually sell it off in the dark web to monetize, to make money out of it. Now, this is where we have seen many such attacks in the past and even today that are happening, where some attack groups actually go on the dark web, steal or buy those stolen credentials and then attack your network. Now, this is something what we have seen is a rising trend where it is very difficult to manage such attacks because these are legitimate users. The attackers are impersonating legitimate users to get into your network as such. The next thing that we are seeing in the market is basically the rise in cryptocurrency is a concern for all fintech organizations. Now, we do understand the challenges of cryptocurrency because the way it works on a decentralized platform. Now, however, there are where regulations from FATF or probably even the local regulators are putting in to curb cryptocurrency exchanges to prevent fraud. We do see this as one of the vectors for threats such as money laundering, terrorism financing, and fraud. Now, this is where we believe that organizations, especially fintech organizations, need to have a complete visibility on the type of crypto transactions that are happening across their platforms or across their network as such. So if I summarize, like for example, we spoke about the different attack vectors. We spoke about the phishing, the business email compromise, web server compromise, the second attack vector. We spoke about stolen credentials, which is also another vector. We spoke about the different threats from a financial industry perspective, specifically with the rise of cryptocurrency, resulting in threats such as money laundering, terrorism financing, and fraud. Now, when we talk about these threats, how do we actually manage those threats? And the first thing to manage these threats is to have a solid foundation of your attack surface management. So which means that you need to know your attack surface first. Now, attack surface can be looked into two different perspectives. One is where we're looking from an external perspective, from an attacker perspective. So we need to know from an external perspective, what are the different public facing applications do we have? What are the vulnerabilities lying in it? What is that something can be exploited? That is the first way of looking at it. The second way we're looking at attack surface management is our internal resources. What if an attack vector like a BEC is used to compromise an internal asset as such? Now, this is something where we have a complete perspective of our attack surface. So the first thing that we want to know is have a solid attack surface management program in place. The second thing that we need to know is and this is specifically because in the type of world we live in today, again, we are all trying to get out of the pandemic and get back to our lives that were before 2019 as such. And this is the way we want to work. But what is happening is, at this moment also we are working remotely or in a hybrid sort of an environment. Now, when we talk about this sort of a model, it is very imperative for us to understand, that attackers could, as one is where attackers are targeting the public applications, but there's other set of elements that the attackers could target, which is more of an easy element for the attacker, and which is the end user, the remote user. People are working out of home, people are working from remote places, and it's without the actual infrastructure protection that they have. Now, this is where it's very important for us to go and have and ensure that there is adequate protection on the end users' systems as such. So that is the second thing that we want to do. So now that we know the different attack vectors, we know what are the different things that attackers use against us to compromise our networks as such. The question is, how do we have a proper attack management strategy in place? Now, to have a proper attack management strategy, the first and foremost thing that we need to do is have a breach mindset. Is where we presume that we are attacked, where we presume there is a breach in our environment, and we lay down our controls accordingly. Now, this is where we're talking about different levels of control. We talk about prevention, we talk about detection, we talk about response as such. We're ensuring we have the proper processes in place in case of a breach, and we are not doing a firefighting when the breach happens. So that is the first part. The second part is where we have an intelligence-led and threat-informed cybersecurity program. Now, this is very important because when we have such sort of a program, it has an attacker's perspective. Now, I do advocate and advise customers to adopt frameworks and standards because they make their process much easier. But at the end, but what we believe, seeing what is happening in the wild, is where attackers are using different techniques as such, and a sophisticated technique as such. And this is where we need to have a cybersecurity program designed from an attacker's point of view. And this is where we believe that having a intelligence-led and threat-informed cybersecurity program would help. And the third important aspect is to have a risk-based approach. Right? At the end of the day, we want to monitor, we want to measure what are the risks associated with these attacks. What is the impact of these threats onto our business as such. So these are the three pillars that we need to have in place for managing modern day attacks. Thank you.
Vishal, thank you so much for that insight. I hope you guys got a lot out of that. It's definitely an evolving threat landscape. Come back to us in our Unit 42 websites. We're constantly updating that. Now let's shift gears and talk about digital transformation.